Is organic really better? To understand conventional farming and practices, first you must ask yourself, do you understand what organic really is? According to the USDA, organic food is processed by farmers who emphasize the use of renewable resources and the conservation of soil and water to enhance the environment for quality for future generations. Organic meat, poultry, and eggs, along with dairy, come from animals that are given no antibiotics, no growth hormones, and this means that for maximum production of the land is limited, the risk of illness spikes, and the price becomes outrageous for the average consumer. These things do not make me interested in organic food, and soon all of the rest of you will feel the same. Land to food. With the growth of our population, with less farmland, organic is not practical. The loss of farmland has dropped extremely fast in the last 80 years, and it continues to be reduced daily. 6.8 million farms in 1935 are reduced to about 2.1 million farms in 2002. At this rate, in 20 years, when we're feeding 9 billion people on practically none of the land we had 80 years ago, how does organic farming become feasible, possible, and economical for ending world hunger? Organic farming does not use the land to its most efficient potential. However, conventional farming gets more and more crops per square foot of land because of the scientific advancements in technology and equipment through farming. 170 bushels of corn are what you get per acre in Iowa. For example, that means that we lose territory needed to produce these 170 bushels of corn because organic farming is only producing 75% of what conventional farming produces. With that 25% loss, we are losing an extremely large amount of the potential food we could be producing, not for just our country, but for the rest of the world and for the millions of hungry people that don't care where their food comes from as long as they have something to eat. Along with the outproduction of organic farming, vast acres are reduced to make compost for organic farming. Because natural practices have to be used, manure is composted, and this takes time, man hours, and a large amount of property to pile these compost piles up. And this takes away room that could be plowed and put into crops, room that could be used to raise more animals, and therefore it takes up a lot of time waiting for the fertilizer to be compost. All in all, this is not a more efficient process for feeding the world. Here's some examples of conventional farming. The conventional corn that would be grown in organic farming compared to the genetically modified corn that is used in conventional farming, there's some major differences between the two. The genetically modified corn has a 6% reduction in pesticides compared to conventional corn. The production roughly estimates a 7.6% gain in production per acre over conventional corn. And that equals enough to feed 80 billion calories in a year. In this picture, you can see the difference between corn that was sprayed with pesticide and fertilizers in the background and where it was missed in this corner, which would be considered organic corn because there was no pesticides or fertilizer applied. all this was planted at the same time, and therefore you can see about a 4-foot difference between the conventionally grown corn and the corn that was missed that would be considered how you would grow organic corn. And you can tell that it's a solid 4 foot behind. It's not as green. It's wilted more than the conventional corn, and therefore you can see the slowdown from growing conventional corn to organic corn. Health risk. To start with, companies that serve natural or organic food have a larger health risk. For example, there are several cases that show health risk from disease from E. coli in natural and organic food companies and restaurants that serve it. The biggest is a Mexican restaurant called Chipotle that is extremely organic and natural based and does not support the use of conventional farming. Chipotle at the end of last year and through the beginning of this year had an extremely bad outbreak of E. coli that included 52 people in 9 states getting extremely sick, and by November 20th, Chipotle had voluntarily closed 43 locations in Washington and Oregon. However, only 11 locations were contaminated with the illness. They still chose to shut these restaurants down to keep their company functioning and keeping from getting sued and having to file bankruptcy. This company that promotes organic and natural foods uses this as a scare tactic towards people that would normally consume conventional food, now consume natural or organic food from their extreme amount of commercials the company produces against conventional farming. The process of not treating and vaccinating animals is not any safer than vaccinations and antibiotics. Since the USDA sets an extremely strict withdrawal date on those products, there is no chance that anybody will be contaminated with any residue from antibiotics or any growth supplements used. Eating meat that is processed using antibiotics is better than eating a sick animal because, let's face it, if you were sick, you would go to the doctor and get antibiotics. Why would you consume an animal that was processed to be organic that was sick and ill? It just doesn't make any sense. If you're confused about food, you're not alone. According to this statistic, there's a large outgrowing of moms that are confused and do not understand the facts about their food. 43% of moms believe that organic food is healthier. However, companies show that there is no difference between organic and conventional foods as far as health risks are concerned. It's just a marketing tactic. Price. This is the thing that's going to affect you as a consumer the most, because when it hits your wallet, everybody feels it. With the high risk of organic food, there's not a chance that the middle class can afford what it costs to buy and eat organic food. There's a 25% increase in the price compared to regular food. And this is because on the other end that we talked about earlier, we see the fact that it is a 25% loss in land, and therefore you see an extremely high markup to make up for that lost production that could be conventional farming. Organic advertisement is scaring the country into buying products that are not any better than the standard produced products you would buy on the shelf conventionally farmed. The scare tactics and advertising spent on organic farming is what causes you to see an increase of price. If it was as great as it was to be made out, they wouldn't need to advertise. They wouldn't need to scare the consumer into believing conventional agriculture is bad and they wouldn't make you feel that you were hurting yourself by eating non-organic food. According to this statistic, there's an extreme difference in the price of bread, eggs, and milk compared to conventional farming. And an organic loaf of bread is going to run you from $3.19 to $4.56. And we all know that an average price of standard loaf of bread is anywhere from $1.19 to $3.79. The jump in price is well over double on some products. When you start talking beef and poultry, we see an extremely high jump because you cannot produce the amount of meat you can conventionally raising organic animals. Well, the truth is out. Since organic food does not really show any greater benefit, and in some cases will make you much sicker than normal food, we need to step up to the plate as consumers and educate ourselves and realize that we're not gaining anything by eating organic. We're hurting ourselves. We're hurting the rest of the world that is starving, that would love to have a bushel of GMO corn. And folks, it's time we step up to the plate and end world hunger and give you the safest meal you can eat, and that is through conventional farming. And there's my sources.